Welcome, you're listening to the Digital Healthcare Podcast. This is Adriano Garces bringing you digital healthcare news and insights directly from the front lines of innovation and care. In this episode, I will talk about how to structure your healthcare strategy and focus on its second pillar, strategic planning. Thanks for listening. I'll kick this episode with what I call the diamond of concepts, and that is consensus. Consensus comes from the Latin consens, and it means agreed, and later evolved to consensus that means agreement. It would be best if you never lost sight of this concept, since your strategic planning and momentum will heavily depend on getting feedback from allies, from co-workers, and other supporters to accomplish the vision defined during strategic thinking. So make sure you keep that in mind at all times. It's a step-by-step process that informs, guides, and instructs what needs to be done, when, and by whom. That clarity will help with getting the organizational focus and consensus you need. It will serve as a template for making consistent decisions and will fuel the movement towards the envisioned future. However, strategic decisions are often supported by a great deal of quantitative data. Let's not forget that in areas like digital healthcare innovation, we are dealing with uncharted territory, and therefore strategic decisions can't always be quantified. So leaders and managers have to complement their quantitative decision-making process with what I like to call cultured judgment, which is the fruit of, first, the recurring exercise of applying systems thinking to understand the context and circumstances of the target market, and secondly, to consider the do's and don'ts informed by previous experience. Moreover, before you can formulate the strategy of your product or service, you must understand the external and internal circumstances that represent the market and your organization. And you can start framing it by answering the questions like what the organization should do, secondly, what the organization wants to do, and finally, what the organization can do. This will provide you and your team with a snapshot of the situation and work as the foundation for your directional strategy formulations. Having a cyclic structured process initiates a re-questioning, discussion, and documentation of all the old and new assumptions, and indicates where your company should go through your product or service. But as I mentioned before, without a process, ideas are not addressed, conclusions are not reached, and decisions are not executed, nor strategies are adopted. So I hope I was able to fire up your interest for strategic planning, and in fact, I recommend that you investigate and dive a tad more into strategic planning frameworks and activities. This will allow you and your team to give substantial thought and analysis that will result in consensual strategies that top management and your peers will support and nurture. In the next episode, I will talk about the third pillar, strategic momentum. Stay tuned and thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing your time with me, and don't forget to subscribe and share with others. Stay tuned for the next episode and keep on innovating.